let me walk you through the things that I brought on my Camino. What to put in your backpack is a question that everybody has when they're planning the Camino. I walked my Camino in October through into November and basically had weather that ranged from bright sunshine, 26, 27 degrees, through to temperatures below freezing, wind chill dropping the temperature even further, and absolutely torrential rain. Naturally, what I brought along was going to reflect the kind of weather that I knew that I was going to be having in autumn. Obviously, the same will probably ring true for people who are going to walk in spring. The basic principle that all hikers use for this kind of thing is layers, so that you can add things and remove things as the weather changes. And in my experience, some of those changes were taking place in a single day, so you need to plan ahead. I've got a lot of experience walking and hiking in Italy during the autumn, during the spring. I usually don't hike very much in the summer because it's too hot for me. So some of the things that I brought and some of the decisions that I made are based on those experiences. So let me talk you through and start with the biggest item that we have to deal with, the backpack, the thing that you're going to put everything inside. So the backpack I use, and I've been using for quite some time now, is a Decathlon backpack. It's 50 litres. The reason I love it so much is, A, I personally find it incredibly comfortable, but also I can adjust basically every part of the backpack whilst I'm actually wearing it. It's one of the things that makes it so much easier. As you're adding layers and taking layers off, you can simply put the backpack back on and adjust the straps, adjust the waist, adjust the height and the way it sits against your back and your body when you're walking. In addition, it also means that as you're walking, sometimes things shift in the backpack. You know, the weight gets distributed slightly differently as things move around, and it's a backpack that allows you to adjust for all of that on the fly. It's brilliant. I've been using it for years, and for me, it's a backpack that I would absolutely recommend. Obviously, if you own a backpack already, that's going to be the one that you're going to use. If you're looking around and you do have access to a store like Decathlon, this is not a sponsored video, by the way, then it's worth going and having a look and seeing what you can find there. The next biggest item that I brought along was my sleeping bag. It's a synthetic fill, which makes it a little bit bulkier. It has a temperature rating down to 5 degrees for comfort, which I thought would be suitable and was absolutely fine for this time of year on the Camino. The reason that I brought a synthetic fill was because I'd heard, like many people, all of the horror stories about bed bugs, and I wanted something that I could throw in the wash and dry at a higher temperature without really having to worry about it. Again, if you already own a down sleeping bag, then that's probably fine to bring along if you want to do that. My experience was that I heard stories of them while I was on the Camino, but I didn't actually come across any bed bugs on my entire trip. Now, obviously that's my experience, but I did it just to be secure and safe that I could actually wash the sleeping bag should I need to do that. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, layers are the way to go when you're hiking. The layers that I wear next to my skin are all merino wool. So I brought one long-sleeved top and two short-sleeved tops. Merino wool is wicking, so it takes the moisture away from your skin. It's warm, it's very comfortable to wear. Actually, it feels good when you put them on against your skin, and when you've got your straps on your backpack, there's no real kind of problems with rubbing or chafing or anything. And it's also really, really good at not smelling. And obviously, if you're hand washing, you're not necessarily doing the most effective wash on a daily basis. So it's one of those things that it's just good to know that you're not going to be absolutely stinking to high heaven as you're walking around. The same goes for the underwear. I use merino wool underwear, again, for the sweat, for the smells, and because I'm hand washing, it's also very comfortable to wear. And for the guys out there, it's one of those things, if you're on the hairier side in the downstairs department, merino wool is also very good at basically just not chafing and not causing any problems there. So something to think about. I brought 2 pairs of boxer briefs and 1 pair of, I guess you'd call them long johns, which I did actually wear on a couple of days because it was so cold. I also sometimes wore them at night. There were a couple of places where there was no heating in the albergue, so they were very comfortable to wear in the sleeping bag and just stayed a little bit warmer. My next upper body layer was, I'm going to call it a fleece. It's actually sort of a top that's made, I believe, from a recycled plastic material. It's actually from Decathlon as well, but it is incredibly warm. So I generally wore it in the mornings when I was starting off, sometimes in the evenings when I was finishing a walk and it was cooling down, often at night as my kind of outer layer. But it's very thin, it's very lightweight, just packs down really, really small. And actually a lot of the time you can see it slung across the back of my backpack. I would wear it in the morning, take it off and just put it on the outside of the backpack just to air it out a little bit. So very light, but very, very comfortable to wear. Where I start getting a bit, let's say, controversial is that when I'm hiking in this time of year, in the autumn, in the spring, I will usually bring 3 pairs of hiking trousers. So why do I do this? It's basically because I've had the experience of washing trousers in the evening and not having them dry properly overnight, especially in the colder weather. And the worst thing and the most uncomfortable thing you can do is put on trousers that are wet. Often they'll stay wet around your waistband, and if you put those trousers on in the morning and start walking with your backpack fastened around it, that's pretty much a surefire way to run the risk of getting chafing and sores around your waist. So I like to have 3 pairs of trousers so that I've got something that I can swap out and change into. So what do I bring? I brought 1 heavier pair that converts into shorts, as my classic hiking trousers, 1 other pair of just long hiking trousers that I can swap out, and then the 3rd pair is the pair that I would change into and wear in the evenings. These are just a very plain, single colour pair of trousers. They're actually also hiking trousers, so I can always use them in an emergency if I need to swap them out or if I damage any of the other pairs. But they basically look a little bit more formal. They don't really look like hiking trousers at a distance, so I just feel that I'm not standing out as much in the crowd in the evening, or if I wanted in the cities to sort of basically look moderately smart during the day. These are the trousers that I would wear and just sort of blend in a little bit more. It's a personal choice, but it's something that works for me. Socks wise, I wear 2 pairs of socks when I'm hiking. The first pair is a pair of toe socks, and then I wear a thinner pair over the top of those. My experience, it helps with preventing blisters. I've actually walked the last sort of year or so, I've walked probably 1,500, 1,600 kilometers and haven't had a single blister. If anyone wants, I can do a video on my foot routine, sort of share that with you. I just find it more comfortable. I personally like toe socks. I know some people don't. I would generally say try it out, see whether it works for you or not. The socks that I do wear are sports socks, so they're made of fibers that wick the moisture away from your feet. So again, something that I do to help prevent blisters. But toe socks and then another pair of thinner socks over the top is the way that I go. Because I was walking in cooler months, I brought along a puffy jacket for warmth. I did use it in the evenings quite a lot when it was cooler. There were also some days, if you've watched my videos, you'll see that I was definitely wearing it because it was so cold during the day when I was hiking. It's a synthetic fill. I've had it for years. It does the job. Nothing special, but it really is necessary this time of year. You will get cold days, especially on the Meseta with the wind. There's no real shelter from it. And in the evenings in October, November particularly, it is going to get quite chilly. Obviously the same is going to be true for spring. And on that note, what if it rains? So I have my waterproof jacket, a heavier one that I use generally only when the rain is very, very heavy. I have a smaller jacket that I bring along as well, much more lightweight, and that's the one that I actually wore the most on this hike. Generally, it's good for showers, it's good for lighter rain. It's also a lot easier to just sort of unfasten it and not get too hot and sweaty, which you can do when you're wearing waterproof jackets. The weather's not that cold, but it's raining. You want something that you're going to be dry, but also that you're not going to sweat too much when you're wearing. So slightly controversially, I bring 2 of the waterproofs, and then obviously I bring a pair of waterproof trousers. I probably only use them a couple of times, but the waterproof trousers on the days that I did need them were an absolute lifesaver. I would have been thoroughly, thoroughly miserable without them. You can see in the videos just how heavily it was raining some days. So for me, that's the weight that they are. It's, you know, tens of grams is worth the packing of a pair of waterproof trousers for this time of year. The other things I brought along, mostly for cold weather, were my buff, which I ended up wearing as a hat because I lost my hat on the first day of the hike. So until I could buy a new one in Pamplona, I ended up wearing the buff, gloves, and a woolly hat. Again, the woolly hat and the gloves, I think I wore maybe one day in the whole hike, but on that day, I absolutely needed them. Again, they're so lightweight, you just shove them in the top of your backpack and you really don't need to worry about it. But this time of year, absolutely, I would recommend bringing something like that along. The buff, I would just bring along. It was, sun protection for my neck, sun protection for my head when I needed it, wind protection in the cold, and just generally keeping my neck warm when I was hiking. Absolutely love them. A couple of other things that I brought along with me. The first was a pair of small, light deck shoes. They're just packed into my bag really easily. They're also really good for walking around on my days off, wearing in the evenings. It's not really the time of year for wearing sandals, but obviously in the summer that would probably be the better option. But for me, they're just easy to wear, easy to carry. Again, look reasonably smart and were pretty comfortable. I also brought one pair of cotton socks, which I would wear in the evenings. It's a lovely feeling when you have taken off all of your hiking socks and hiking stuff to shower and then put on a pair of cotton socks. It's just something you can't explain unless you've hiked. And the last thing was a pair of shorts that I just wore when I was in my sleeping bag and at night in the dormitories in the albergues. So what else was in my backpack? All of the clothing items that I brought with me were actually packed into a couple of dry bags. I just find it convenient, firstly, for organising things, just making sure that you know where everything is when you're packing in the morning and when you're taking stuff out of your pack in the evening. I also brought an extra dry bag along, which I used occasionally for laundry. If I hadn't been able to do laundry, that happened a couple of times. But mostly for when I was in the shower, I would put my towel, my sort of personal belongings, sort of wallet, that kind of stuff, into the dry bag and then hang it on the shower door. It just kept everything dry. A lot of the showers were quite small and you could find yourself with a very wet towel if you weren't careful. So I bring that along and just basically help keep everything dry while I'm showering in the evenings. And on that note, my towel was just a small microfiber towel, just classic hiking towel. They're not brilliant for drying yourself with, but they are very, very light. And actually one of the good things is if it hasn't quite dried out overnight, it's easy to stick it on the outside of your backpack, just fold it up and it will still dry out as you're walking during the day. Obviously not if it's raining. If the sun's out, if it's warm enough, even if it's just windy and cool and cloudy, you can still stick it on the outside of your backpack and it will still dry. One of the bulkier items that I had with me was actually my toiletry bag. I use a combo thing. It's actually a first aid kit bag that I got, again, in Decathlon. What I've actually done, it comes in 3 sections. So one section, I put all of my personal medication that I need to bring with me. In the middle section, I put all of my actual toiletries. And in the third section, I've moved all of the kind of first aid thing that I need. I use a bar soap and I use a bar shampoo as well. And squeezed into that backpack, I had things like my Compeed, all of my first aid stuff, my plasters, all the stuff that you're just going to need, rather than just using it as a single first aid bag. Then I could fold it all up and basically shove it into the backpack. It works very well for me. Obviously, some people bring fewer things. Some people separate out their toiletries and their first aid kit. But for me, just having everything in one place was really, really easy. I could just sort of open it up and get anything that I needed. One thing that was a little bit of a game changer for me on this hike was bringing a bum bag, or a fanny pack as you would call it in North America. Traditionally I've used the bags that clip onto the rucksack straps. For the Camino I decided I would bring the bum bag and see how that worked. Now the one that I ended up buying is actually from the cycling department of the shop that I went to. It's designed to put in a water bladder for cyclists so it would fit around their back and then have the tube coming through. So what I did was I just cut all of that stuff out, modified it, and found myself with a very, very large bum bag. I actually had a couple of people ask me where I'd bought it, and one lady who took a photo of it just so she would remember where it was. The volume actually ended up coming out at about 10 litres, so it had a massive amount of extra space. What I used it for was all of the things I needed day-to-day access to. So my passport, cash, my wallet, my pilgrim passport, hand sanitizer, sunblock, but also all of the camera equipment, because obviously I was filming the walk. So all of the camera equipment that I wanted to carry and needed access to. Plenty of space. And then in the evenings, I would put in all of the other stuff that I wanted to carry around with me, just make sure that I had everything in one place. And you could just sling it over your shoulder and carry it around very, very securely. So it kind of doubled up as my evening bag and also my sort of day bag for all of my camera equipment and the other stuff that I needed access to. Absolutely loved it. I have taken it on another walk since then, and I think it may be replacing my pouches on my straps, on the straps of my backpack. In it, I had my electronic equipment, so the plug that I used in the evenings, I had all of the cables that I carried in. I put them inside a Ziploc bag that I could just keep everything dry. I also had the camera gear, so my selfie stick that I carried, my little tripod that I would use, the gimbal that I used for filming. I also kept parts for the drone, although most of the time I carried that in the pocket on my legs of my hiking trousers just for easy access, and then in the evening would put it into this bag so that I was carrying it around with me. I carried snacks in there as well, as mentioned already, my pilgrim passport, all of that kind of stuff. So all of this stuff fitted in comfortably and was absolutely accessible easily when I needed to get to it. So a big thumbs up for this. I think it, from memory, actually thinking about it, I think I actually bought this in the cycling department of Decathlon as well. A couple of things that I added into my kit as I was going along. I bought a new metal water bottle. I generally have used historically plastic bottles, but with the sun and the direct sun that I was getting on my water bottle on the first day, I decided that was probably not a good idea. So when I got to Pamplona, I swapped out the bottle, the plastic bottle, for a metal water bottle, so I added that in. And then as I started struggling in the Meseta, I got a RSI injury in my left ankle. I went to a podiatrist and actually got compression socks, which I added into that. Neither of these things obviously add that much weight to what you're carrying, but I did sort of purchase them. I wish I'd brought the compression socks earlier because I think I could have saved myself a lot of trouble, but they were added into the mix. Other things that I was carrying, obviously my hiking poles. 90% of the time I was using them. Occasionally I would strap them to the back of my backpack and not use them, which is a really bad idea for me. I had knee problems a little bit, and then I started getting the foot problem, as I mentioned. So, but I did carry them occasionally. The only other thing that I haven't mentioned yet is the seat pad, which I generally kept strapped to the top of my backpack. Something I always carry with me. It weighs nothing, but on days where it's a little bit difficult to find somewhere to sit comfortably, or it's been raining, or things are just damp, it's absolutely brilliant for just throwing on the ground, sitting on, kneeling on if you need to, if you're sorting something out in your backpack, and just generally having around for making things just a little bit more comfortable. As I said, it weighs nothing, but it's generally attached to my backpack all of the time. I take it on every walk. So other little bits and pieces that I brought along with me. Sometimes you go into the showers and there's nowhere to really hang up your towel, or for me, the dry bag. So I brought along some hooks that I would just carry around with me. There are various of those scattered around northern Spain at the moment. I think I brought 3 and I've come back with 1. I also brought flip-flops, which again I would wear in the shower, which are now somewhere in northern Spain possibly, or someone's picked them up and sort of cleaned them off and started using them. I brought things like safety pins as well, just in case I wanted to attach anything to the outside of my backpack. I didn't do that on this trip, but I have done it in the past. I brought a couple of Ziploc bags, spare Ziploc bags, which again are useful if you need to shove some, wet socks or wet anything into the Ziploc bag and keep it separate. It's really, really useful to have a couple of those spare. I also brought some clothes pegs. These are useful, obviously, for when you're washing your clothes, just putting them outside, just attaching to make sure things don't blow away, but also very good for identifying your clothes if it's gone dark and you're out trying to find where your clothes are hanging on the line, along with, sort of 10s, 20s, 30s of other pilgrims as well. One luxury item that I brought is an inflatable pillow. I need quite a lot of neck support when I'm sleeping. I just find it uncomfortable not to have proper neck support, and it's something that it's very lightweight, but it makes a massive difference to the quality of the sleep that you're getting when you're in the albergues. The pillows are not always the best. For the amount of weight that it is, it's just something that I would always bring with me. And last but not least, there was one thing that I carried on this trip that I did not use. I think it's the only item that got zero use on this entire Camino. And that was my wind cheater. Again, it sits in my backpack pretty much 100% of the time. I just carry it around. It's incredibly lightweight. I think it's about 70 grams. When it was windy, it was so cold that I was wearing all of my other layers, so it would have been a bit redundant. But again, it's one of those things that the weight means that it's easy to carry, it's easy to have access to, and they are useful if you have a warmer day, because the wind cheater isn't really there for warmth, it's there to block the wind. But if you have a warmer day, but it's really, really windy, it's very good for just keeping that sort of chill off you. But on this Camino, I didn't use it. So here is the grand total weight of everything that I brought with me. Now, obviously, at any given point in time, I was wearing some of the clothes. The water adds weight as well, usually a kilo for every litre that you're carrying. Sometimes I carried more than 1 litre on longer days. I was using the hiking poles. Snacks sort of add up little bits of weight as well, but overall this is what I was carrying. For me, it was absolutely brilliant. I never felt that I was struggling with the weight of the backpack, but obviously you need to make your own decision about that, what you're comfortable carrying. I hope this has been helpful, and if you have any specific questions, if you have any questions about what I've said, any questions about the reasoning that I have for carrying some of the stuff, or just general questions about the Camino, of my experience on the Camino, then drop me a line and we can have a chat about it. Okay, thanks for watching the video, and do remember to like and subscribe because it really helps a small channel like mine grow.